Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my VCT EMEA power rankings and predictions for week 1. Going to go through all 12 teams, rank them in order, all that jazz, as well as go through all of the week 1 games and predict who I think is going to win. If you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Really helps me out. Trying to push towards like 1.5k-ish before the off season and then maybe 2k by the end of the year. That's kind of my goals for right now. We'll just have to wait and see how stuff goes by then. But yeah, this should be pretty interesting. I think EMEA is one of the most like tight knit regions in like the middle of the pack. So yeah, should be very interesting. Also, if you guys really enjoy this video and want to know maybe what I think about specific players, if you watched my player ranking series at the beginning of the year, I did post my player rankings on Twitter. You can go check those out. Link is in the description. And you can also just see any reactions to anything like roster moves or just live reactions to like games and stuff, like getting my takes maybe a little bit faster. I did mention it in my other two videos as well, but these videos will be changing from maybe 2 a week, like the power rankings and the predictions separately for each region. So that would be 6 videos in total between EMEA, Americas, Pacific. There will just be 3 videos of one of EMEA, one of Americas, one of Pacific. So just wanted to let you guys know, but it is a lot easier for me, especially like I can upload it the day before the games start and have a little bit more time to watch the previous week's games. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, we'll start at number 12, and I think this one's going to be pretty consensus. I'm going to have Apex at 12. I mean, Floor, which is honestly the only reason anybody cares about this team, realistically. Floor is the only reason this team looked good, like at all. Um, or this team looked competent at all. She looks really, really good. I have her in like my top 5 duelists in EMEA. And I'd just like to see her with a little bit more help. Maybe go to an NA team that is pretty good, has some stuff around her, and then she can be a lot better and be maybe one of the best players in the world. I'd just like to see a little bit more team success from her until like I really rate her as like one of the best duelists in the game. But she's top 5 in EMEA right now for me, I believe. 5 or 6, I don't remember. I might have moved Camo above her just because he was doing really well for Liquid. But outside of Floor, Badu, I think he looked pretty good when he was playing the duelist, but everything else was kind of, I mean, meh to bad, I'd say. So I don't think this team can lean into double duelist every map. Like, I know T1 did, but T1 is a specific example where they have 2 really good duelist players. I mean, even a third good duelist player. They can kind of swap who's playing what on different maps. Realistically, I don't think Apex has enough overall roster talent to do that, even though Floor and Badu look mechanically really good. But overall, I'd expect this team to get relegated at the end of the year, and that wouldn't be too much of a surprise, especially with what the expectation was coming into the year. But I do think Floor is definitely exceeding my expectations. I thought she would be good, but maybe have some bad moments in terms of overheating and doing weird shit. But she doesn't seem to be doing that. And even if she is, even if she does do it every now and then, like on that ace that she had on Abyss, she's killing everybody anyway, so it doesn't matter. Then Koi, I have at number 11. This team was really disappointing for me. I really liked a lot of their pieces heading into the season, but I don't think their read on the meta was very good. They're playing a lot of double sentinel stuff, and it's just kind of eh. Flya, which was one of the big reasons why I thought this team would be good, he really, really struggled in terms of like mid rounding and like just the general read on the game, especially on the attack side. They kept like when they played Haven, I think it was in their first game. I think it was against Liquid. I'm not sure. But when they played Haven, they kept like making pressure towards A and then cutting noise and then re-hitting A without pressuring any other area on the map. And they did that like 4 or 5 times in the same half, which was really, really weird. Garbino, I still think is looking good. I think he can play both Sentinel and Smokes for this team and has been pretty good at it. Um, and again, I just liked a lot of their pieces, including Soulcast. Filu was kind of eh. I wasn't super like invested in him necessarily, and I think Shados was also a guy that I really believed in heading into the year, especially with him playing Sentinel or not off of the Sentinel role now and playing Initiator. I do think this team is a potential bounce back candidate, but I really would not bet on it with how bad they looked. And I mean, even to a point, how bad this organization has looked in Tier 1, they just have not been able to field a successful roster despite. I mean, it does look like they're trying. Maybe not last year, but I think this year, I did believe in the pieces on this team. It just didn't really come together. Now, in this won't be bad tier, we're going to start with Gentlemates. I honestly found this team surprisingly good. I thought they were going to be pretty bad. I didn't really think a lot of the pieces would really fit together. I did think some of them were good, but it wasn't like I thought the whole roster would be good necessarily, like together. Like I thought they would find some pieces, ultimately get relegated at the end of the year, and kind of be in a whatever spot. But they did do pretty well. Now, their only wins were over Koi and Apex, and obviously you can see that they're bottom two. Those are the bottom two teams in my power ranking, so not super impressive there, but I did think they looked good in those wins. They flamed out versus Fnatic. I think they did have some nice looks against Heretics, although they kind of flamed out towards the end of that series as well. Um, I thought Mini and Robbie looked really good. Specifically, Mini was a guy that I didn't really know too much heading into the season, but after watching him here, I was very impressed. And then Robbie, I did know quite a bit about him, but honestly, like I ranked him 12th out of all of the initiators in the EMEA. I don't remember where I had him after kickoff. I can go check real quick if you just give me 1 second. EMEA, I have him now 8th in a tier from 3 to 8. So it's not like there's a huge difference between him and my number 3 guy, but to be fair, he is an IGL. He'll be a little bit more inconsistent. I didn't think his aim was super flashy when I watched him in tier 2. It looked pretty flashy and pretty good when it was in tier 1, so that was very impressive from him. Click was good. I had him ranked 12th because I didn't watch him very much heading into the year. So I moved him up a little bit, but he did have a pretty bad game or two. I am not reading my notes correctly. I mean, I like can't remember it fully, but yeah. Click was like fine, but he had some bad games and some really bad moments as well. He was very inconsistent. Uh, Not, I mean, like a round to round consistency thing, where like he would miss quite a bit of op shots. I remember specifically on Portal B Long. I think this was against Apex, where he would hit some nice, like very impressive shots, but also miss some of the very easy ones and stuff like that. But yeah, overall, I think he was fine. I don't really have many takes about Zip-On. He was fine. He was Zip-On, not like the Zip-On of old, but he was like kind of what he was last year, just generally fine. And then I think Cadavro was, I mean, as always, very good. He's definitely one of my favorite players to watch in EMEA. I did move him down mainly because I thought he got passed up by a lot of Smokes players, but he wasn't disappointing in any way whatsoever. So really like him. I kind of like this team, but I don't think they're going to do very much. I think there's a few teams that, while maybe less exciting, they have like less high end pieces. I do think they are better teams overall. And that'll start with Navi. Um, I mean, why is Angel playing Scan and why is Xiao playing Flash Initiator? It just makes no sense to me. I mean, overall, like let me pull up their VLR page. Ugh. Like what they were playing. Like, did he? I don't think Xiao played Sova one time. Did he? Oh, he played it on Abyss, I believe. Which, for some reason, is the only map where they went with those roles. Every other map, it was Xiao playing the Flash Initiator and Angel playing the Sova. Like, on Abyss, they played Xiao, Sova, Angel, KO. But then on Pearl, they played Angel, Sova, Xiao, KO. Now, he looked good on the role, and I'm not going to say Xiao was a bad player whatsoever, but it's not like he was that elite level 2022 to early 2023 Xiao that we all know and love. I mean, the comps are still a little bit weird. Like, I believe it was their Lotus comp that they were running. It was against Karmine Corp, right? Yes, where they ran the No Duelist, Sage, Vise, Omen, Astra, Teo, which was definitely interesting. But, like, I thought with how good Yoru was, Angel was going to try to lean into that a little bit more as somebody who's like the architect of the team. But no. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that, especially with Koala playing a lot of that in tier 2 with M80. I thought he was pretty good at the Yoru. So I don't know. Maybe it was something they tried and it didn't work out. But like, let's see. No, this is not the game. This is what I'm looking for. Yes. So Koala Noob played, I believe it was on Haven. Yeah, he played one map of Yoru, and that was on Haven, which to me as a solo duelist is probably one of the worst Yoru maps in the pool, maybe outside of Fracture. So I'd like to see more Yoru from this team. I'd like to see more like Vise. I mean, now Deadlock after she got buffed. Um, there's another agent. Probably a little bit more Teo in there, but I think overall they were fine. Definitely disappointing for me. I thought this team definitely had a lot of upside in terms of playing the Xiao and the Scan Initiator, getting that old form back. Angel being one of the better callers back then as well in 2022 and 2023. And then like Koala Nu potentially being really good in this meta with the Yoru. Um, and I think Ruxic and Hero both looked pretty decent, had some very questionable moments as well. But overall, they looked solid, and I would expect them to continue to get better. I mean, if they play at that level, I expect them to Navi to potentially move on at the end of the season. But they did look like two decent young players. Hero obviously playing with Fnatic already, but did have some mistakes in there that you don't love to see. But I think overall, this team looked decent, but could definitely be a lot better. Then our other team in this won't be bad tier is Giants. I think this team kind of reclaimed their throne as the most mid team in the world from 2023. That being said, they are a lot more exciting. Cloud, Westside are both insane. They looked really good, had some great highlight moments between the two of them, and were overall just pretty consistent. Runner and Tamazi looked decent. I think Runner definitely had some more mistakes and didn't look as high end of a player as Tamazi. Like Tamazi looked solid throughout the whole thing for them, except I think he had one really good map and one really bad map, if I remember correctly. Let me see. They played BBL. I think yeah, it was against Karmine Corp. He had a really good game. I think specifically one really good map where he dropped like 30. No. Okay, he was just relatively really good throughout that series. And then he dropped the stinker against Liquid in their next game. So I don't know. He's going to be a little bit more consistent. I think he's good though. Runner. I mean, I thought he was really good heading into last year. He kind of disappointed me on the two roles where I thought he would be good, playing a bit more like flex initiator stuff now. Don't know exactly what to think from that, but I thought he was good. And then Purpo. I was really disappointed in him. If there was an EMEA team to make a move that like like a team that if they got rid of one player and brought in another player that was really good to replace him in that same role, I think Giants could have been a team that could have made a move and gotten a lot better in this offseason or in this like kind of transition period between kickoff and stage 1. But honestly, they're fine. I think they could continue to get better if Purpo kind of gets into form a little bit more. I know he had some decent games last year, but overall hasn't been great in tier 1, so you'd like to see him kind of get into a form necessarily. But yeah, overall, I was pleasantly surprised by Giants looking kind of more in line together, like a team that like actually works together rather than how they were with Redgar last year. All right, now in this tier of teams that I think should be even better than they were at kickoff, I think two of these teams definitely have a more of a negative tone to it than maybe one of the other teams does. But we'll start with Karmine Corp, which is one of those teams where I would say that they were very disappointing. I had them rated like as a top couple, like top 2 or 3 team heading into kickoff, just for kickoff in terms of I thought they would have a good read on the meta with both Sadak and Aang, who are both very good. Sadak creating like that Harbor Viper meta with the help of Fraud, as well as Aang being one of the best coaches in the world. Now, they did not we'll talk about that in a second. But I do just want to say all of the individuals on this team, whether, I mean, whoever you want to point out, all of them were good. I would say some are better than others. I mean, obviously, Sadak wasn't going to be the best player on this team ever, but Aves was very, very good. And Sugetsu, I think, was also one of the better players in his role in EMEA and even the world at kickoff. Elite was very good. Uh, I wouldn't say he was on the same level as maybe Aves or Sugetsu, but definitely solid. Martine playing a lot of Yoru. I think he looked decent on the role. I wouldn't say he was bad at it, but wasn't like an elite level or maybe even some of the better Yorus in the world. Kind of where I was rating him heading into the year, I just wasn't like super in on how good Martine was necessarily, but he looked solid. And then Sadak, even as an individual, didn't look super bad. But oh my god, these comps are terrible. They're running Harbor on almost every map. They're running solo Yoru on every map, which I think is good on most maps. Like, I would say 90% of maps, or I wouldn't even, there's no percent you could put on it, but I would say most of the maps, Yoru does look good. But, like, they're playing this comp on Haven where they're playing solo Yoru, they're playing Harbor, Omen, Killjoy, and fucking Fade, which, like, none of those agents are good on Haven. Like, outside of Omen, maybe, and I guess Killjoy is good, but I personally think Cypher's better. I think Vise might be better, but I haven't played around too much with that myself. And obviously Fade isn't good on that map. Yoru, I mean I mentioned it before, I think it's good with the Yoru ISO, but I don't think it's necessarily the best as a solo duelist. And then Harbor like used to be good, but is not anymore. So this team needs to play less Harbor, play more Teo, lean more into the meta stuff, maybe play a little bit more Vise as well, here and there, on different maps, and just kind of copy the best teams in the world in terms of their comps. Maybe not necessarily G2 and T1, but like go look at Vitality, maybe play some of their comps. Maybe not the Yoru ISO necessarily, but on Haven, but like all of their other comps, I think you can very easily copy with this roster. And I think they'll be very good if they do that. But there is definitely some pause there. I think I do have the most pause about them because of that, and necessarily whether they'll be good at those comps when they do play them. So I don't feel bad about Karmine Corp, but I don't have a good feeling about them. There's a chance that they'll be worse than the teams below them, but I do think there is a chance that they end up making it to Toronto just because of all the talent on this roster. Then we have BBL. This is definitely the positive conversation. I was pretty high on this team heading into the year. I thought Levin or Loon was very good. I'm just going to say Loon because it's easier for me to say. Somebody can correct me in the comments. I will change to Levin if that's how you pronounce it. But he had an insane start to kick off. Like, he was amazing out the gate. Not so much in their other two games, like against Fnatic and Giants, he was unbelievable. And then against Heretics and against Liquid, he was kind of meh at best. So you want to see him maybe become a little bit more consistent, to be fair. The two teams that they played and lost to were when he played the worst. Maybe, I don't know if that's necessarily related in terms of he played bad, so they lose, or they played bad, or they lost, so he's going to play a little bit worse. So they also played two of the better teams in Heretics and Team Liquid. Obviously, Heretics wasn't playing good the whole tournament, but they were playing good in that BBL game. I thought Yampi was good. I don't think he was great individually, but he was very good. And his calling was good. Again, I wouldn't say it was great, but it was definitely good, which that was kind of the big pivot point with this team was if his calling ends up being good, then they'll be a good team. If it's not good, then I don't know where this team's going to go. But Sociable was as good as advertised, at least by me. I was very high on him coming into the year. I really liked him. He ended up being very good. I mean, the Chamber on Pearl coming out, that surprised me. And it was so good. It was even better than I expected. So that was very, very good. Was very happy with that. And then Profec, also as good as advertised, I'd say even better than advertised. Probably I was maybe a little bit lower on him than I was Sociable, but I was still very high on him. He was insane, clutching out a lot of rounds. And then I think Vac did a very solid job filling in for Shiwa. I would expect Shiwa and this team to be better with Shiwa, but I'm not fully sure. I do think they are very similar caliber of players in terms of Vac and Shiwa, but I wouldn't necessarily like think she was like a big upgrade, but they were scrimming with Shiwa a lot before in the beginning of the season, so I would expect them to be better with him. Then our last team in this tier, we have Fnatic, who definitely was very disappointing. I think less so than Karmine Corp because they're playing without Leo, but they're definitely a weird team to rate. I'll talk about the good first. Alpha and Chronicle, both playing really well. Chronicle playing a lot of different stuff and looking very good at it. I think it was so stage two for me last year. I thought a lot of that was him playing the scan initiator because Leo was gone and he was much better at that than the role that he was playing before. But after looking at what he's been playing in these games here, I think it was more of a like return to form necessarily where he looked individually a lot better. Like from Champs 2023, all of last year, he looked kind of bleh until stage two and Champs. So good to see that he is back in form and can play pretty much anything for this team, including like the Sentinel stuff. And then Alfier, I'm gonna have a little bit less of a positive conversation about him. He looked very good individually. I'm not gonna like diss that at all. But the role that he's playing on this team is really weird to me. I just don't think the like role that he's playing on is good for this team and good for the comps that they're playing necessarily. Like if he switched back to full-time Sentinel, I think he would be better at that than Chronicle. But if he goes to play like all the stuff that he's playing, like the Tejo, which looked, I mean, he fragged on it, but the utility didn't look very good. And it doesn't really allow him to play like a super heavy fragging style necessarily. So I'd like to see them switch back to more defined roles in terms of who's playing what. Maybe he plays a little bit of the flex. Like I would like either him to fully transition to a flex like initiator, maybe play a little bit of duelist, then play double duelist, that kind of stuff, or maybe him play sentinel and play kind of what Meteor does for what's it called for T1, and maybe even he could sub in for like the duelist when they want to play like some of the comps that T1 does when Izu plays duelist. Like he would kind of play the Buzz duelists, and Kayak would always play the Yoru in both ways. So they could do something like that, and he could play the Sentinel on all the other maps. I think if this team leads into something like that, they will be very good. But I don't really think that'll happen because it's Fnatic. And I think that's a good transition to Boaster, where he is very rigid in his calling style. This team is very set in terms of, okay, we do this, then we do this, then we do this all the time. I might have just clicked. Nope, I did not click my stop recording button. Thank God. My hand like graced my keyboard, so I was really concerned about that. But yeah, Boaster, just very rigid, like step-by-step gameplay that is super readable at times, like offsite post plants and stuff, and just kind of a very disciplined and playing the game the correct way all the time instead of like letting people do individual stuff. And I think these next two players I'll talk about are definitely part of that. Not looking quite as good. We'll start with Crashies, where I think that's very, very apparent. I mean, he looks like he's just sitting back and doing what Boaster wants him to do all the time instead of actually making plays himself. Because I don't think aim wise he actually looked that bad. His stats are just terrible because he sits back and doesn't like fight anybody the whole time, and then the fights that he usually does take are sitting outside the site in a like 3v1 because at that point then they've lost all the fights and stuff. So he's not being put in a good spot realistically. So I thought he was good despite that. The stats looked really bad, but honestly, I don't really read into that stuff too much. Then Kayak was disappointing to me. His Yoru, he just needs to be a little bit more aggressive on. Um, Now, I think some of it is the team around him is not aggressive enough. He's kind of getting sent in and just dying every time. I do think some of that is he needs to kind of be the guy that goes in and like have everybody follow up behind him, but it's not necessarily like great like even then. I don't even know how to describe it. Like he needs to maybe watch some Jogamo VODs, play more like Jogamo, not necessarily have to TP in all the time in the Yoru, do some flashing and stuff. I think otherwise he looked solid, but maybe not quite the like top 3, top 4 duelist that I was truly expecting from him, but he was still good and I was fairly impressed by him. I would hope that the team around him gets better and therefore he will get better. I think that's kind of my expectation and he'll just kind of grow into this role a little bit more. All right, now into the teams that could maybe be in that top 3, maybe make Toronto. And we'll start with Team Heretics, who just looked awful, especially in their last 2 games. I thought they looked fine against Gentlemates and fine against BBL, but nothing super special. We'll start with the more fixable parts of this team. I think Benji was rough, I'd say, at kickoff. Like, it was not good. He just was not hitting individually in the same way that he was in 2024. I just had to remember the years. Champs, to me, looked kind of rough as well. Um, Overall, like there were some really good moments during Champs, but I mean, overall, I didn't think he was performing at the highest of levels. I mean, also his stats were really bad, but I thought he was playing maybe a little bit better than those stats were showing. Um, but like, yeah, it was kind of like Champs benchy, but it's against worse teams, and there's no real highlight moments that he was producing during Champs, so that was very disappointing to me. The roles of this team are really weird. They're just swapping Boo and Woot's roles between maps for what I thought was just, oh, okay, like they might play like Woot wants to play certain kind of smokes agents, or maybe like some people theorize that it was to have Woot become more like of a fragging player. No, no, they're playing it because Woot doesn't want to learn lineups for initiators on certain maps. So they just have Boo play the ones where you need initiate or where you need lineups for the KO, which is definitely interesting. Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. Like, you get paid to play the game, learn lineups, bro. It's not that hard. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what else to say about that. Like, just make him play those agents and learn the lineups, and that's it. If you tried it and he literally cannot learn the lineups, then I don't know, man. Maybe you switch to full-time Woot Smokes and full-time Boo Initiator, which I think would be much better than just randomly swapping it between the maps if you decide that we need lineups on a certain one. Then I think the big part about this team is Boo overall, but mainly his calling. That was very bad, and especially their ability to like adapt to new things coming at them, because against Gentlemates on Abyss, it was very bad. Now, I think that game specifically, you can kind of chalk up to the team was sick quite a bit before that game happened. You can kind of chalk it up to that, and I would be fine with that. Like, I would not complain about it at all. BBL game, I thought was fine. I'm gonna be entirely honest. I watched that game and wasn't paying full attention, but I thought they looked better in that game specifically. Um, but they fell apart in the next games. Now, not as much against Vitality. They didn't look great in that game, but it wasn't horrible. Like, I still thought, all right, Liquid's been kind of shaky throughout the whole tournament. Surely Heretics is gonna bounce back and at least, like, they might drop a couple maps. It might be close, but they'll be able to beat Liquid, and then they win what, 8 fucking 15 rounds in 3 maps against this team. And that was the point where I was very much questioning Boo's calling. They played against a Reyna, Raze, Clove, Fade, Reyna. Or not Reyna, sorry. I already said that. Viper. On Lotus. They were playing against no Sentinel, and they refused to pressure to like each side of the map on the same, like not necessarily at the same time, but like push and pull on the map in the same round. Like they would just take Mound, sit there for like 30 seconds, and then hit the site every time. And it was infuriating to watch because Liquid was playing so heavy in terms of rotates the whole game. And they would just like have 3 people there on every site hit, and Heretics just didn't know what to do. Abyss, I mean, Heretics haven't been good at that. They're playing Benji Fishy on Teo. Like, I don't get it. Just play like a normal comp or something like that. I don't know. That was weird to me. The fracture wasn't that bad, but like, I don't know, man. This team was really bad at kickoff. I would expect at least the Benji Fishy part to be better, and I think that would kind of get this team into like a top 5 at least kind of scenario because they have Rien's playing really well. They have Mini Boo, who I mean, his stats were really bad at champs, but I thought the way he was playing, like kind of playing the duelist like for the team, I thought that was still good there. And I think even though I think his stats were better at kickoff, I believe. Like, let me look at the overall stats. Mini Boo, Mini Boo, Mini Boo. Uh, yeah, I mean he had under a 1 rating, but he was close to 200 ACS. I mean, didn't do that bad in the FKD department. 0.18 to 0.14. He was positive. So I think he was doing better playing like a similar kind of role for the team. And then if Benji kind of self-corrects, like is a lot better back to maybe not back to like his peak last year, but back to at least like the champs level, I think this team should be like top 5. They have enough roster talent for it. Boo's still a good individual. Woot is still a really good individual despite playing some weird role stuff. And yeah, they're the enigma of these rankings. You gotta like you can't put them that far down necessarily because of what they did in 2024. But what they showed at kickoff was really rough. And I mean, they had 2 good games. Like they were bad on Abyss against Gentlemates, but otherwise they were good in that game. And then the BBL game they were good. So like it wasn't all bad for this team. They should be fine. But the stuff that you saw in that, specifically the Liquid game, was horrendous. But I'll move on now. To Team Liquid, who was very surprising to me. I thought the roster talent on this team was going to be kind of They weren't going to hit I thought this team would, if they were good, was going to be a team that kind of worked the map, didn't necessarily get a lot of upset wins, but beat a lot of the decent, like they were kind of that mid team in EMEA that could beat the teams below them and teams playing worse than them. But a team that's supposed to beat them, they are really not going to win those games. And that was not the case. I do think this run was largely based on form. I mean, obviously Kiko, obviously Nats were unbelievable, like 2 of the best players in the world from kickoff. Specifically, Nats was really surprising to me, like kind of returning to that old Nats while IGLing. I thought his calling was really good. I mean, I think specifically the bind against Sentinels, obviously, just being able to call like around his setups, kind of even set himself up while IGLing was pretty good. Camo I thought was solid. Patty Tech I thought was solid. Kamek, I thought he was fine. I thought he was pretty good. Gave them some flexibility to play some smokes, some initiator, depending on the map. He got dropped after this team made top 5 at what's it called? At Bangkok. That was odd to me. I don't think he was necessarily the best player. I thought a lot of like he specifically for me was a lot of form, like in terms of he does not normally hit every single shot like he was doing in some of these rounds, like that clutch that he had against Sentinels on Abyss was insane. And I don't think his individual decision making and necessarily his utility were that great. So I could see them getting better, but I don't know who they're picking up at this point. To me, the rumors haven't necessarily suggested this, but I thought Ninja from their academy team was pretty good. Don't think it's going to be him, but that would make the most sense to me. He plays the scan initiator and plays some like smokes here and there as well, so that would fit 1-to-1. And he was pretty good in tier 2 for them, so I mean that makes sense. But overall, I think Liquid should be really good. I thought they were going to kind of take a dip. I considered putting them under Heretics, but in terms of what these two teams showed at kickoff, it was so wildly different that I had to put Liquid above Heretics. Then I had FUT. I think they're just a good team that's been good for a while. I mean, they looked good as always. They got fourth, about what you'd expect from this team every single time. Zeus looked really good. Not necessarily a surprise to me, but was very nice. I was very pleased by that. Cracks, I kind of don't really want to talk about it. I've talked about it on Twitter quite a bit. I just think his flexibility is a big reason why this team can't get over the top. They can't fully play all of the meta comps and stuff like that. And yeah, he just makes it so, like, Mr. Fallen can't play the Sova as much because he has to play the KO on so many maps, and he can play Fade and he can play Gecko, which are all fine agents, but like it just doesn't fit with the team necessarily. Like if he added a Sova or maybe like a full-time Breach to his agent pool, I think he would be really good. But I honestly think he needs to go. It's been 3 years at this point, and he still can't expand his agent pool. Very similar player to Zeppa in Americas, who I've talked about quite a bit. Just very disappointing from him necessarily, but I think the rest of this team is set up to win. Definitely should be a team that is going to Masters. I think that last spot will be between Liquid and Heretics. Obviously, the one spot, though, is going to go to Vitality. There's rumors that they're going to get rid of Trex before the season starts, which is interesting. They signed Sayonara, who, I mean, that's a good move. Like, he'll probably end up replacing Trex in the long run. But if he's replacing Trex, or if somebody else comes in and replaces Trex, like, this stage, I don't know why you would do that. You just made top 4 internationally and looked like you had more in the tank, but just kind of against the top teams, you didn't have enough experience, especially with safe IGLing, to like get over that hump quite yet. I don't get why this team would make changes. I don't think they will. Those are like a lot of it's just rumors with Trex, but there is some concerning stuff there that I'm not exactly sure what's going on. But I think either way, even if they drop Trex and bring in somebody else that's solid, like there's been rumors about Leo. If he was healthy, he would be playing for Fnatic. I don't get what the hell that is. But yeah, I would have them number 1 no matter what. Well, so a little update. This is like a week later from when I recorded the rest of this video, but Syvov is going to be coming in for Vitality and replacing Trex after they just made top 4 at an international event, which is definitely a decision. I would imagine there's something internal going on with the team in terms of egos, and that is why Trex is going to be leaving, and they wouldn't be like replacing like a player like Safe or something, because he's the IGL. I would hope Syvov is mainly staying on the initiator, like flash initiator roles and stuff like that. But I think that's more of Kick's role. So maybe Kicks would end up moving to like more of Smokes or Recon, which I think he is significantly worse at than his flash initiator. So I still think Syvov is a really good player. Also, they're bringing in Sayonara as well with this to eventually replace somebody on the team as well, which I don't think is a bad move at all. I think Sayonara and Syvoff are really good. I honestly think Syvoff is better than Sayonara. Maybe that's a hot take, but I think with Trex out and Syvoff in, I'm gonna be moving Vitality down from that top tier that they were in, where they were just like alone as the very clear best team in EMEA. Now into the top of the next tier. I still have them number one, but not much else is changing in terms of the power rankings. But yeah, this is really weird. I would imagine Trex is going to go back to another team in EMEA and be very good, and nothing much is going to come of it. I mean, if he joins a different team before stage one, which I highly doubt at this point, maybe it's possible, but it's really surprising that this is happening. I don't know. And yeah, now onto my pick'ems. All right, now onto my pick'ems for week one. We'll start with Vitality Giants. I think Vitality should win this game, even if they bring in me to play Initiator instead of Trex. I would imagine they win this game over Giants. That's not even saying that Giants are necessarily that bad. I just think the rest of this Vitality roster is that good and should be considered like the best team in EMEA against like maybe one of the lower to like lower mid-table teams in terms of Giants, like just missing out on playoffs, I would say, or where I would put them around. Then BBL Karmine Corp. This game is probably the game of the week, the most interesting one at least. I'm gonna pick BBL. In most cases, I would actually pick Karmine Corp over them, but I'm gonna make Karmine Corp show me that they can run good comps before picking them in this game. I think that kind of matches with my power rankings a little bit more. And yeah, I really believe in this BBL team as well. Might look very, I mean, they could look a little bit different even with Chiwa in the team, which would be very exciting. Then Heretics Apex. I mean, if Heretics don't win this game, they actually need to like FF the rest of their matches for the rest of the season. I would be floored if they lose this game. Get it? Because like Fluorescent on the other team, yeah, you can unsubscribe now. That's fine. Whatever. Then FUT Koi. I mean, I would say the same thing about that, but I mean, I think this is even less likely. Even though I think Koi is maybe a slightly better team than Apex, I think FUT is a slightly better team than Heretics, so it kind of balances out. And I think FUT has definitely a higher floor game to game than maybe Heretics would. Then Fnatic Navi. I'm going to give Fnatic the benefit of the doubt here. I don't think this should be an upset for Navi. I mean, obviously, I think these teams would be similarly rated. Maybe Navi a little bit lower than Fnatic most times, but they should be kind of in like within like 2 or 3 of each other in most people's power rankings, I would say. Actually, I don't even know if I had them within 2 or 3. Fnatic, I had 5th. Navi, I had, yeah. Okay, they were not within 3. Okay, well, whatever. They were kind of close to each other, so I do think they're fairly similar teams in terms of having a very good core from last year and some questionable, maybe not necessarily the pieces being questionable that they added in, but like how those pieces were incorporated. And I think Navi specifically, similar to Karmine Corp, they have to show me that they can play some of the correct comps. Then Liquid Gentlemates. I want to have a take about this game, but I'm not going to. I'll still explain it because I kind of wanted to pick Gentlemates here. I think they could be a pretty decent upset team within EMEA this year. Not necessarily a team that's going to make playoffs and do some damage there, but a team that can sometimes beat some teams that are expected to beat them. I think Team Liquid is very susceptible to that in this game specifically. They just brought in a new player, don't know who it'll be, but they just brought in a new player to play Initiator for them. They could look wildly different and maybe make me regret picking them in this game. And I also think some of the form on these players could go down. But I think overall, even if it does go down, I still think Liquid has better roster talent and should be able to win this game over Gentlemates. So let me know what you guys think of both my power rankings and my pick'ems in